Okay, so thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Today, we are here with Debbie Levitt. She is going to present to us Stop Evangelizing UX and What to Do Instead. So we're excited to have Debbie join us. As you guys may have heard prior to the webinar, she has an upcoming podcast on design thinking, jumping the shark. Did I get it right, Debbie? So we definitely want to tune in. Debbie's got some good stuff for us today. Just a few announcements before we continue. We do have some upcoming webinars. Next week, we have 2 webinars, Design After COVID, along with the content testing and research. So please check our education tab on uxpa.org for all of our upcoming webinars and short courses. A few housekeeping items. Debbie, again, is going to present. We will have some Q&A towards the end of the actual webinar for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how long Debbie goes today. And we'll get your questions answered there. And of course, this is being recorded, so you will have this recording made available to you within at least 72 hours. Without further ado, I introduce you guys to Debbie Levitt. So Debbie, take us away.
All right. Thanks so much to Carm for all of her help behind the scenes and now here today. And special thanks to the UXPA for having me today and hopefully in the future. I've got a presentation I'm going to do, and I'm not going to watch the chat during it, but if you guys want to put in questions, I'll check them later. So really quickly, just so you know, my presentation runs about an hour, but I'm happy to stay as long as Carm can stand me and answer questions. So let's share the screen and let's make sure the right screen is being shared. You guys should see a big slide that says Stop Evangelizing UX. Yes? Carm on mute. Can you, did I share the right screen?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, then let's set sail. So thanks again. I'm Debbie Levitt, and this is Stop Evangelizing UX and What to Do Instead. And who the heck am I? I've been doing this for since 1995. Who remembers 1995? I was there. I've been a strategist, architect, designer, speaker, trainer. I spent a lot of the 2010s in the Bay Area working at a lot of different companies and agencies. Clients started calling me independently Mary Poppins because I would fly in, fix everything, sing a few songs, and fly away to where I was needed next. So now I run my own CX and UX agency, which I call Delta CX, also the name of the book I put out last year. And so again, we do full service CX and UX projects and consulting and helping with people hire. So if there's anything in the world that you need and you're allowed to bring in an agency, contact me. Let's see. So what can I tell you? Also, you can find me on the interwebs. I am not much of a tweeter, but you can tweet at me for sure. I am Delta_CX. You are welcome to follow me or add me on LinkedIn. I'm Debbie Levitt. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have like a little graphic. No, I can't put up my graphic because I'm sharing my screen. So I've got a YouTube channel at Delta CX. I go live usually at least twice a week. So hopefully if you like what I'm doing, you'll come here more. And also you'll see a little camera icon come up at the bottom. This is normally better for my live talks in a hotel or something, because that tells the audience that my slides are done animating. And if you wanted to take a screenshot or a picture, I'm done animating. So just a little heads up there. We're in trouble. By the way, also, I'm saying CX more than UX. I believe they're mostly interchangeable, and I believe we benefit from shifting away from the term UX. I'm not really covering that here, but just know if I say CX, it's not some other crazy thing. I currently see CX and UX as mostly interchangeable, but I think CX is a better term for us, so I'm shifting my language. So, CX and UX are misunderstood, circumvented, belittled, and overruled. You know what it leads to. I don't have enough time to tell you about Agile, Scrum, and other methodologies that have books, training, and material that exclude CX or UX. They don't even mention us. Some of them admit you'll need UX, but they suggest someone on the engineering team just study UX, go read a book. Safe Agile, which is one flavor of Agile, suggests that UX isn't on the Agile team because they've been too siloed. Yes, siloing us is their solution for us being previously siloed. Safe is, quote, empowering Agile teams to do their own lean UX. Well, go to my YouTube channel and watch my podcast about lean UX is neither lean nor UX. So I'll cover a little bit of it later. Safe also mentions that when the Agile team is doing UX, they should, quote, include the design perspectives of product management, system architecture, business owners, information security, operations, and shared services. Sounds like the Agile team will be doing specialty CX and UX work with everybody at the company except us. Brilliant. Makes me think that someone at Safe had some sort of bad breakup with someone in UX, and this is revenge. But you know from working at various jobs that this is the tip of the iceberg of the problems you know are happening at workplaces. Our solution has traditionally been to evangelize CX and UX and what we do to everybody who will listen. I see job descriptions that require UX evangelism. That tells me people at this company don't understand or respect UX. Good luck working here. No other role at your company spends time and effort evangelizing themselves the way that we do. Developers are not making PowerPoints to explain why it's important to hire qualified developers and let them write code. QA isn't holding meetings to teach everyone the importance of testing software. It's just us. And it's making us look weird and whiny. It's not working. There are many things people don't want to be sold. A new religion, going vegan, and the value of UX. So I've been trying something new. I wrote a 2-day workshop aimed at non-CX and UX roles, and I created short conference session versions that run from 30 minutes up to a 2-hour workshop, up to full-day workshop. Since October 2018, I've been traveling around the world, though slightly less traveling this year, and I present at DevOps, Agile, Engineering, Lean Agile, other tech and dev conferences to a non-CX, non-UX audience. So mostly engineering managers, sometimes product managers, but lots of developers, QA, project managers, sometimes business analysts, and lots of Agile coaches. I wanted to see if I could write a program that didn't come off as UX evangelism, but would help them understand us better, see why CX and UX are something important that must be done by experts and specialists, or at least T-shaped people, and give them concrete how-tos on how to properly integrate us into their processes. I might be the only CX or UX conference session they've ever seen that didn't try to teach them to do our work. Stop doing that. Before I tell you how it's going, let's see the hour-long version of this boiled down thanks to the magic of some voice acting. So I'm going to read some things a little bit fast, so I apologize to people who don't have English as a first language. Some of this will go by fast just for performance art effect. So what is UX? This is my only slide in Italian, but it makes me happy and it makes Italians happy. And it says, what is UX? I walk people through the short version of user-centered design so they can understand 3 key things. We don't just draw boxes on a page. What we do takes time, and what we do takes expertise. I explained their current process is probably to build what a CEO or product manager wants, QA it, get it on a server, and wouldn't you know, that person sees it and changes their mind. Now you've got to rebuild, retest, cycle, time and money burned. But if CX or UX were correctly integrated, their process would look more like what's on the screen. And changes of mind can be okay during CX, since it's easier for us to change wireframes or prototypes and retest than to have developers keep rebuilding. I introduced them to my 4 horsemen of bad UX, registered trademark me. They are frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction. It's a great kind of layman's termsy model that I find UX and non-UX people just fall in love with, because people say, good UX, what's that? Bad UX, what's that? I go, well, have the 4 horsemen of bad UX arrived? And then I kind of train them to see in our interfaces as we're designing them or building them or reviewing them, are we noticing the 4 horsemen have arrived? They love it. Short version. I have a section on lean where I explain minimum viable product versus minimum valuable product, you know, we would all prefer. And I say, Take it from Eric, Mr. Lean. Even if you're not doing lean, he said, what if we found ourselves building something nobody wanted? In that case, what did it matter if we did it on time and on budget? Go to lean and minimal, and you might be building what nobody wants. Your UX expert can help product and engineering prioritize stories and features to find that balance. Nobody puts UX in the corner. Then usually I sing a little bit of Dirty Dancing. Since discovering the Lean UX book, Safe Agile changed from a methodology that included UX specialists at all levels to us being a recycle your garbage icon in the bottom left of this infographic. We are in the island of misfit toys and clearly excluded from everything that's going on here. I've got a mountain of slides on how UX and Agile can work together. It's another podcast. You can check the YouTube channel in the live podcasts playlist. But this slide explains all the areas where we could fit into an Agile process using one of SAFE's infographics, from the portfolio level, where we're hopefully killing ideas early that have no customer value, to being on the Agile team, a true partner and collaborator and sprinting along with them. I talk about how we can work in sprints, though I tend to think in hours, days, and weeks, and any flavor of Agile or software development, whatever it is, but we must estimate our own time. People who don't understand what we do, how or why, should not be estimating our time, tasks, budget, resources, and other needs. If UX or CX is a bottleneck, hire more and the right people. Not expect us to train engineers to do our jobs, as Agile and Scrum books suggest. I talk about how you can measure how things go before and after your CX revolution, both internally and externally. Externally relating to customer satisfaction, conversions, app ratings, and metrics. Internally, like, I bet developers will be able to estimate their time more accurately when working from vetted CX designs versus estimating from user stories or a description of what we're building. And I close by reminding them that what they've been doing or tried in the past might not be CX to a CX expert. Many non-CX roles are creating methodologies that mostly belittle, downplay, or remove us, and companies trying them find in the long run they don't work. It's time to try again and get this right by correctly integrating qualified CX and UX practitioners and processes. And scene. So you can see this on the deltacx.com website. If you're curious about the training, if you want to give the training, let me know. We'll train you up. But we've got to get this out there. It seems to be working. But notice I don't ask for empathy anywhere in my presentation. I also don't say design thinking. I also don't cry, don't you care about real users? The closest I get is showing an accessibility example where creative NFL football uniforms made the colorblind unable to follow the football game. But that example works even if you're capable of sympathy but have no empathy. Many humans are low on empathy. And these humans typically don't have the self-awareness to know they're low on empathy. So they're sure that they're compassionate, caring, understanding, and generous, even when we see otherwise. They commute with us, back when we commuted. They work with us, and boy, oh boy, do they comment on our social media posts. And if there's one thing we've learned, especially in the last few weeks or months, we can't change them. We can't give people empathy or create empathy. We can't wake them up. The world sure would be different right now if we could, which means please stop telling low empathy people to just have empathy. Unless they choose to begin a long and deliberate path of self-improvement, they can't experience more empathy than the level they're at now. We need to have enough empathy to see who's low empathy and understand that being outraged that they don't seem to care about users is not how we'll appeal to them. For those people, we have metrics and ROI. So my fresh angle is mostly working. I like this moment my photographer caught. But when I first started doing these talks, I got a lot of bad reviews. My favorite bad review was, not work-related, just an advertisement. Not work-related? What? I also got a review that said, I walked out. It was raw UX evangelism and did nothing to explain how it fits with Agile. The negative feedback I got was all associated with a feeling of being sold something. A few people even mentioned this is the same awful UX evangelism they suffer through at work. So I rewrote the presentation many times since then, and now it gets nearly 100% rave reviews. I don't tell you that for ego. I tell you that because I found that shifting what I said changed how it was received. Imagine that. So where I've got 60 minutes or more with an audience or at a private corporate training, I start with a live poll of what do you believe about UX? All the choices are negative, and I inspire them to choose as many as they believe. Things like, isn't lean, isn't agile, is something anybody can do, is just wireframing. You can see people happily voting for all of these choices in my live poll. So my presentation dispels all of these, but it's a nice point because for my longer versions, like the private corporate training, this is the ending point. I have a word cloud and I ask them for words or phrases that describe UX. And this is one from an actual training I did. It helps people see how far they've come from that first poll where UX was just endlessly bad dogs. And I tell them if they still believe any of those things, write them here. But for the most part, I never see those things written here. I really have dispelled those myths. So I inspire all of you to take a look at your actions, words, and choices as practitioners, managers, and teams to see where walking a new walk can send a stronger message than, sister, please pray with me now. So that tells you what I've been doing and how I know typical evangelism isn't working. I get so many people coming up to me after my talks and going, I hate our UX people. Here's what they're doing. It's all so broken and we have to make those first moves to fix it. So what can we do instead? I like to say you will go much farther being an important part of the team than you will by holding another meeting about how you should be an important part of the team. We spend so much time talking about empathy, putting ourselves in the customer's shoes, researching people's experiences and designing for them. And then we don't do that for our own teammates. We don't consider that most of them don't want to hear a CX or UX evangelical, I guess you could say, presentation. We don't consider what they need from us. What is their experience like? Why is their dissatisfaction level with us so high? What's their job like when we disappear or don't communicate? Imagine you're that product manager, that developer, that QA engineer. What do they need from you? Well, you don't have to imagine. You can find out. We should be using our CX abilities to build a coworker experience that matches everybody's needs. Again, people come up to me after talks and say, our UX guy disappears into a black box for weeks or months. They slap a finalized design on developers and they're never heard from again. Sometimes engineers are receiving designs they can't even build, and nobody collaborated with them before to learn about technical limitations and requirements. We have to stop doing that. Many CX workers are avoiding engineers, probably because it's less than no fun to try to work with the people who sometimes think the least of you. But the best way to change that relationship is to keep showing up, keep being involved, collaborate. Ask questions early in the process, show them the work as you go. Give cross-functional teammates all the documents that are fit to be passed around outside the CX team. Make sure they have personas and understand how they're used. Show them your customer journey map, CX research, customer feedback, your IA process, everything. Not because you need their approval, make that clear, but it'll help if they see what you're really working on other than drawing boxes on a page. Get tools in place, tools for communication, sharing concepts, sharing documentation, sharing designs and specifications. Ask for tickets in Jira or whatever they use for engineering tickets. Don't settle for a Trello board of CX issues if they're all in Jira. Don't settle for a spreadsheet. You're on the team and you should be part of their communication, documentation, and other systems. You're on the team. Be on the team. Make engineering questions and issues a high priority. Teach them they can count on you to provide fast, thorough answers. When those tickets come in, I try to drop everything. I'm now their bottleneck. Do you want to go to the Agile Retro and hear UX was our bottleneck this week? I know I don't. I don't want to block the Agile team, and I don't want to be perceived as blocking the Agile team. So I can't say, oh, here's a question or a ticket from engineering. I'll deal with them tomorrow. I try to drop everything immediately and answer them, even if I have to keep some juggling balls in the air and say, okay, I see this, I'm working on it, but I need a little bit of time. So get to it fast. Don't put it aside. Go to the meetings. If we only show up to meetings to fight or evangelize and never show up to bring positivity, help, improvement, discussion, and collaboration, then people get a very one-sided view of CX and UX. Ask to be invited to the recurring and random team meetings. Now, of course, you're on the team. You should be invited, but you might need to ask them. Go to as many meetings as you can fit into your schedule. Work with your manager to improve how you're resourced and allocated so you can go to more of these meetings. Quick side tip, very often when I go to these meetings, I bring my computer and I tell everybody, I'm here, but I'm multitasking. I don't have enough hours in the day to do my work. So I'm here right now, I'm half listening, but if something comes up that's for me, just interrupt me. But I kind of have to juggle a few things right now. I'm multitasking, I'm half listening, but I'm here. That will keep them from making UX decisions without you because you were there. But again, you don't have to 1000% pay attention to that meeting. Sometimes you do, but sometimes I will say, hey, just being honest here, half listening. Ping me if you need me. I'm sitting right here. So I asked myself how I wanted my non-CX teammates to see me. And for them to see me that way, I have to be those things. So thinking about engineering, though it's really for all teammates, Debbie listens to and considers engineering's ideas. I've used Mural to hold an ideation workshop with engineering to get their ideas for the product. That's ideation, not solution sketching. Many had good ideas and I credit them by name when possible. That helps them feel important and listened to. Debbie explains her ideas, designs, and decisions. Debbie collaborates early and often and doesn't blindside engineering later with finalized designs. Debbie's a fun person I like to talk to. She's approachable. I can send her a Slack message anytime and be confident it'll be a good conversation. Debbie has no ego. I can disagree or offer another idea, and she takes it seriously. It might not end up in the product, but I will take it seriously. Debbie makes engineering feel included. Debbie has made engineering see the importance of CX and UX by solving small and large things quickly so their work wasn't delayed. You know what tells teammates these things better than another meeting on how great CX and UX are? When I am these things, hourly, daily, consistently. When you tap into what your teammates need and you meet or exceed those expectations, you don't need to evangelize. They will become your advocate and ally. Let's talk a little bit about who we've been hiring. Here's a job at a Fortune 100 company for senior UX designer. I found out from the recruiter that approached me that this job was actually to lead a new mobile UX team to fix this company's one-star app. I loved the idea of a senior title and senior pay with leader managerial work. Thanks a lot. Okay, so they want 6 years of full user-centered design, including research and testing. Like it. They want high fidelity prototyping, meaning you must have the prototyping subspecialty. Yup. And you must be a visual designer. No, but I can push around an existing design system. I also love the idea that while leading a mobile UX team, fixing a very broken app, you're going to have spare time because UX doesn't take long, right? Swallow your coffee because this job also requires that you be a professional illustrator, a subspecialty in the art world. This goes way beyond Purple Unicorn. And who thinks you're going to have 20% of your time to devote to this? You're leading the mobile UX team. I asked the recruiter about this, and he said the hiring manager is a visual designer and expects everybody on the team to be an artist. Is it 100% bad all the time when a UX manager is a visual designer? No, there are some visual designers who really get CX and UX and manage it fantastically. But when that design manager doesn't get UX or requires all of us to be talented artists, we're in trouble because let's face it, not all of us are talented artists or not all of us want to spend our time doing artwork. And so we might be placing some less qualified people into important jobs because of what we thought was our top priority. So ultimately, I asked the recruiter, can I give you everything you want and so much more, but you can have someone else do the artwork? And they said, nope, the hiring manager insists. Well, I'm not an illustrator, but I would have done an awesome job if they had allowed artwork to be done by someone else. So why would this senior UX designer job, which is really a lead mobile UX designer job, go to a great illustrator? Let's talk about what I call the gate. The gate is that one quality, maybe two, that your job requires where it doesn't matter how great candidates are at anything else. If they don't have this, the gate doesn't open for them. You need to be an illustrator. You must have military clearance. There's nothing wrong with having a gate. It's important to have standards, but I'm suggesting that we stop making art talent the gate for UX and CX jobs that aren't visual designer jobs. If you can't consider someone because they don't have the right security clearances, okay, that's a deal breaker. But we must stop excluding CX and UX specialists from our jobs because the gate is art school stuff. Typography, color theory, visual design, branding, logos, and illustration. Someone told me last year they were rejected from a UX researcher job because they couldn't show a visual design portfolio. Your gate is broken. If we want to teach others at our company that CX and UX are unique specialties, we have to hire as if they're unique specialties. We can't give the junior graphic designer some wireframing and then expect others to see that CX and UX are a formalized discipline for specialists. It sure looks like anybody can do this. I've seen many workplaces thrilled to hire CX and UX juniors and those right out of school, thinking they can throw a lot of work at them and pay them very little. But more than anything, these juniors need mentoring. They need work reviews. They need help leveling up. They need help with soft skills like presentations, knowing when to pick battles, and how to wage small wars as a customer advocate. They need to learn the lawyer-like skills many of us have developed. But what message do we send when we hire only or mostly juniors and entry-level people, but expect expert-level work? Hey, you can do this job with no experience. We don't even need other people on this team. In which other department do they hire one or two recent grads to do all of the specialized work? Now, my next few slides are for you managers and leaders. If this were 3D, it would be really impressive right now. You managers and leaders, I'm talking to you in the next few slides. Take note. We need strong CX and UX leadership. Management needs to work with managers from product and project to make sure we're being brought in during the earliest planning and discussions of features and stories. If we're not at that table from the first conversation, we're all going to be surprised later when we're given junk projects that waste company time and money while building something we know the customer doesn't really want or need. When I do this at engineering conferences, I say, hands up everybody, and it's mostly engineers in the room. How many of you, while you were coding something, knew that this product was crap and would probably be bad for our customers? Everybody raises their hands. Managers, we've got to collaborate much earlier with portfolio, program, project, product, whatever your company calls it, to make sure we're headed for products and services that solve real problems for real customers. Management needs to work with leads from other departments to make sure they're letting us do our job. Agile Manifesto Principle number 5, always invoke Agile stuff where you can. Build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. That's what Agile Manifesto Principle number 5 says. It should apply to us too. Managers, don't push people to be jacks of all trades or unicorns. Most unicorns aren't even really unicorns. They're typically great at one thing, and then they're sometimes mediocre or poor at other things. Why do we want someone mediocre or poor doing mission-critical work? I once ran into a guy at a conference who was very, very proud. He sauntered up to my booth with a smirk, and he said, I'm making all of my artists learn to code. And I said, do your artists want to learn to code? He said, doesn't matter. Artists should know how to code. And I said, well, how does your engineering team feel about the quality of code being written by your artists? Are they spending more time to have to deal with it and QA it? Is it saving engineering time? How does everybody feel about this? Is this working? And he blinked a little bit and he walked away. Let CX people do CX work. The days are busy enough. Play to people's specialties, subspecialties, and strengths. I'm for people expanding their skills if they want to do that, but not because we gave them a surprise job description change, especially one that creeps into the territory of other specialists at the company. We hate when other teams try to creep into our specialties. If you're working from a design system or you happen to be a great visual designer, it can feel fast and easy to work in high fidelity. But please consider more medium fidelity work, and I think even Nielsen Norman Group suggests this. It helps teammates see that CX architecture and design aren't visual design and that the two can be separated. We can work on the blueprints of the house before the house gets its interior design. And if it doesn't test well, the time spent on the visual design might have been semi-wasted. Great visual design can't save poor CX and shouldn't mask it. I know some of you disagree with my separations of visual design and other CX tasks, and that's okay. But since I'm a non-artist with a degree in music, I tend to see much clearer lines between visual design and other CX specialties and tasks. If we in the CX industry don't draw more lines between visual design and other specialties, how can we expect others to make that separation when hiring for our jobs? Everybody, create more realistic interactive prototypes. I know for some people, they think realism means more visually designed, but I'm inspiring you to create prototypes that are more realistic in function. I keep hearing that a click-through model like Envision is probably fine, but I disagree. Prototyping should bring concepts and designs to life in a realistic way. I design right into Acture. They don't pay me to say that, but I did put on my Acture shirt for you guys. I don't use Sketch or Figma or anything else first. I go straight into Acture and I see if my ideas have legs because I can experience them realistically. Engineering loves my prototype since it's better documentation than annotated wireframes. If you're great at coding or you use another highly realistic prototyping tool, that's fine. Our screens, flows, error messages, paths, and possible outcomes have so much complexity now. Clicking through a happy path just isn't enough when we do our work, socialize that work, or run user testing. User testing a prototype without realistic activity sounds kind of flawed. More for you managers. Managers, watch for people being set up to fail. This is normally when I ask an in-person audience of UX practitioners, hands up, how many people have ever been or felt set up to fail? And it's usually everybody in the room. If you tell your manager you're being set up to fail and they don't get it, or they can't seem to help, you're just gonna have to get out of there. Start interviewing. We care about diversity and inclusion, which typically means gender, age, ethnicity, culture, LGBTQ, disability, and more. But, and I can't believe even during the pandemic I have to say this, consider more remote workers as part of your commitment to diversity and inclusion. I used to hear that CX has to work in offices because we like to whiteboard. Now we have tools that allow people who can work from home or be remote and still be part of these types of exercises. If you truly care about diversity and inclusion, and if you really want to find the best talent, then please look beyond the people who can physically appear in your office. If people need to be in certain locations, like for a research project, fly them in. You will have saved so much money. You'll have budget for travel. And side note, I've been applying for some jobs the last few months, and they don't want me because I am remote. I'm just amazed. You think that the pandemic is shifting things and people are learning from it, but I'm amazed at how many jobs I see saying remote start, then get your butt in the office. We need to fix that. Not just for me, for all of you. Hey, management. Check that every cross-functional team a CX practitioner is being assigned to knows what we do, knows what CX and UX are. I've been on project teams who wanted final wireframes 2 days after kickoff. I was on another team where nobody understood who was going to design this feature. The engineering lead volunteered. Hi, I'm your UX architect. That was my title. Does anybody know what I do? No, nobody knew what I did. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow with a PowerPoint. Many of these sound like they need evangelism, but remember from my workshop, there are better ways to explain CX and UX than the approach we've been taking. It needs managerial intervention and follow through. It needs department level and project level strategy that goes way beyond, we'll evangelize UX. So with you guys, my next slides might be a little controversial and a little bit of a preview if they have me back for one of my other topics. I know you guys aren't cheap. I know you're smart. You're all critical thinkers. You've got empathy. So I'm going to ask you, don't just dismiss what I say, but please put on that critical thinking hat. Think critically about them. Let's say our company has a product challenge. We need to research, design, test, and iterate on something important to the strategy at this company or brand. There's a lot at stake. We might want to call in a big consulting company, or we've been hiring some great people lately. What if we want them to handle it? Let's pretend I work at your company. In my world, I want that big product challenge given to me and my team. I want to research the heck out of it. I'm going to talk to everybody, customers, customer support, sales, marketing, engineers, stakeholders. I want to do observational studies. This is a big challenge, and we're going to approach it strategically and thoroughly. After mountains of research, we want time to prototype, test, and iterate, rounds and rounds of it. We've got to go for quality over speed. Don't give me a week or two for this. This is a serious product or service question at our company, right? I'm putting the band back together and we're going to be low ego action heroes. But lately, what actually happens at many of our companies instead? What ends up happening is a design sprint or a team saying they'll just use design thinking. Hey, we can solve this in a week. We'll just do some team exercises. Is it really being solved? And in a week? Design thinking. Does everybody here have the same definition of it? No. Did the person awarding your design thinking certificate judge your ability to empathize, your ability to sketch, your prototyping methodology, your testing plan and execution and interpretation? Or did we treat each of these steps like a checkbox? Empathize, check, did it. Understand the problem? Sure, check, got it done. We know design thinking is a meaningless term because of what it takes to get a certificate in it. You have to know there are 5 steps and lots of fun group craft exercises where you can glue macaroni to a plate. Nobody judged, tested, or assessed your ability to empathize, how completely you understood the problem or customers, if your ideas were viable or good, or if you prototyped well. Everyone gets a design thinking trophy, and many of them are sure they can do our work as well as we can. But our work is about depth and quality. It's not about checking tasks off a list regardless of how they were done. It's about building a customer journey map because we interviewed and observed our customers. We know what their journey was. We don't guess or crowdsource the journey map based on imagining what customers might do, or we know what our customers do. Our company and projects are too important to be left to guesses and assumptions. This was going around LinkedIn as the UX process, albeit in Portuguese. You can recognize this as the steps of design thinking, albeit with a mini Olympics of possible technologies, user needs, and business objectives. From what I see people posting on LinkedIn, more and more people appear to believe that if they get certified in design thinking, they're doing what we're doing. I saw one post saying that design thinking is a framework that boils down designers and innovators' best traits so that anybody can use them. Just follow the framework and you can do what the best designers do. Can your personal strengths be harnessed into a template that anybody can use and boom, they've harnessed your best traits and abilities? Yes, people actually believe this. And let me ask you this, is this your process? When you interviewed at your most recent job and they asked your approach to UX design, research, or whatever your specialties are, did you say, I do design thinking, and first, I create empathy? Hold on, don't interrupt me. I'm creating empathy. If it's not a step if you can't interrupt me. If I looked at your portfolio work, is this what I would see? No. So why are we socializing, spreading, and training something we don't even do? When you're brought onto a new project, do you say, yes, time to switch into my design thinking mindset? Of course not. You have UX running through your veins and there is no off switch. You can't walk down one block of the street without seeing the four horsemen of bad UX popping up everywhere in real life, services, and digital interfaces. This is the don't walk sign in Tilburg, Netherlands. What does this mean? Don't pee in a burlap sack while waiting for the light to change? Do pee in a burlap sack? The four horsemen win this time. Not everybody defines design thinking the way it was defined 10 or more years ago, and it's still changing. No matter what it means today or tomorrow, you will still do what you're doing. It's running through your blood, and I can't come up with a trendy name to give it because it's a unique talent that not everybody has. Here's General Assembly posting to LinkedIn last year. It says, empathizing with users isn't just a UX concept. How applying design thinking to code refactoring can lead to a better software experience. The linked article says that before engineers refactor bad code, step 1, empathize with the audience. Step 2, define the problem scope. Step 3, ideate on different solutions. Step 4, prototype. Step 5, test the code. What did engineers needing to refactor code do before somebody showed up and said, you need to use design thinking? I can't imagine saying this to developers and having them not punch me in the face. Here's another one from LinkedIn. A company proudly proclaimed that the elementary school kids they asked to imagine how people would live and get around a newly discovered island were the best design thinkers around. Are they doing what we're doing? How about this January 2020 article from Fortune magazine's newsletter? Quote, the coronavirus problem could be solved with design thinking, end quote. The article had no proof or evidence that it could do this, but the author was sure that the government of China needed more empathy and ideating. Well, that jumps the shark, but it also exposes design thinking for how arrogant yet meaningless it too often is. It's bad enough that people think design thinking can replace a thorough UX process. Let's please not show up to other industries or world pandemics and tell people how to do their jobs. And if design thinking is this amazing and can solve everything, why do we still have hunger? Why do areas not have clean water? And this article's from almost 6 months ago. Design thinkers, you didn't fix coronavirus. Get on it. Design sprints were originally invented by Google and are best known for being used for Google Ventures startups. The idea behind design sprints is that startups without CX and UX workers can quickly do micro pseudo CX and UX work themselves and decide what they'll build for their MVP. So design sprints and the MVP are two startup concepts that can go well together for startups. They're not a great match for non-startups. We have a UX team that knows how to test concepts without wasting all that time coding and releasing them to the public. We have a product team that knows how to prioritize and create a product roadmap. And why are we trying to model ourselves after startups who tend to fail like 90% of the time? Why aren't we emulating Disney Imagineering? So design sprints are evolving and devolving fast. Version 1 is a 5-day process where you get this whole cross-functional team and some subject matter experts in a room so that you can define the problem, which includes asking the experts in the room what they know. Were we talking to customers? Making customer journey maps, often based on guesses. And then eventually day 2, we sketch our solutions. Day 3, we pick a winner. Day 4, we prototype. Day 5, we test. Wow. But here's the interesting thing. There exists version 2 of design sprints. This doesn't replace version 1. This is just a different version that you can do if you like it better. It's a 4-day process and it requires the full team only 2 days. The agency or facilitator or other experts will do the prototyping and testing. So someone noticed that we probably shouldn't have the whole cross-functional teams trying to stab at prototyping, testing, or interpreting testing. We'll leave that to the experts and they'll give everybody a report of how it went. Interestingly enough, there is Design Sprints version 3. This doesn't replace 2 or 1. This exists simultaneously. Turns out that some facilitators and agencies were arriving at a design sprint only to find out that what the business or stakeholder presented as the problem or challenge was immediately recognized as garbage or ended up torn to pieces on the first day as they tried to define the problem. Well, that derails the design sprint. So version 3 requires that a week or 2 or more before this design sprint starts, the facilitator or agency must do all of the work around the problem. They're going to do customer interviews, they're going to make personas, they're going to create the customer journey maps and do all the research-based stuff and deliverables. That means it's not being done by the design sprint attendees. So everything will be made ahead of time, hopefully by CX and UX experts and not by someone guessing and assuming. Then, of course, the whole design sprint is now 4 days, and day 1 is understanding the problem based on the hopefully good research that was done. So I asked myself, well, if this is the direction things are going in, what will design sprints version 4 be? If we need to take the problem away from the cross-functional team stabbing at it and sticky noting their way to guesses, and if we need to take prototyping and testing away from the team, what's left? And what ends up being left is, let's sketch solutions and vote on the one we like the most. And if you look at some of these super short design sprints, they say, oh yeah, spend 40 minutes sketching and voting on the winner. So I'm predicting that in the future, design sprints will go from a 5-day expensive adventure to a 1-hour group sketching workshop. I would still be against that, but I think that's the direction that they're headed in, because I think they want to show that they're really fast, and I think they want to show that they make lots of sketches, and hopefully the rest will be done by us, but hopefully all of it will be done by us. So look out. That's my prediction. Now I need to talk to you about the Lean UX book, because they are neither Lean nor UX. See my podcast. Lean UX is another aspirology trying to turn us into workshop facilitators. So for here, I'm using the 2016 second edition of the book, which is evidently quite different from the first edition. And this is just a summary of some of the core problems in the second edition. The authors claim they don't want work by committee, but their definition of collaboration means that all work is a team effort done by committee everywhere and always. In multiple places in the book, the authors clearly state that their definition of collaboration is everything is done as a team. The authors demand that you not give any work to any individual, even if they're highly specialized. UX workers are reduced to team exercise facilitators. There is not a single UX task that the authors suggest a UX worker can do themselves without turning it into a team meeting or exercise. They even demand that specialized UX research and its interpretation be given to the team. For something claiming to be lean, it's high on waste. If you thought you were in too many meetings before trying Lean UX, look out. Since every UX task is done by committee, product managers, engineers, stakeholders, marketing, and others will be involved in what seems like multiple daily meetings and team exercises. Everybody's equally involved in research, design, testing, and other important UX tasks, and these all occur in meetings of 2 or more people, where you are one of those people. You are not allowed to work on anything alone. In addition to wasted time, there's wasted documentation, which is surprising for a model claiming to be lean. I love all the meetings they have where people read their ideas out loud so someone else can write them down. That sounds totally undesirable. So Lean UX is a high-waste, slow-motion process. Terrible over-reliance on what stakeholders want. Quote, we found it helpful to begin with a problem statement. These statements are created by key stakeholders as they begin to address the strategic vision for the business, end quote. Well, we just learned from Design Sprints version 3 that starting with stakeholders describing the problem or what challenge we're here to address was considered the wrong way to start. If we want to be customer-centric, we must define problems from the perspectives we've collected from customers, not a stakeholder looking at business goals that just might not be aligned to real customers' needs, habits, and likely actions. The stakeholder's vision is considered, but shouldn't be the main source material. Lean UX has too much time spent on assumptions rather than collecting or using great data. They even say research just takes too long and is too expensive. And the exercises in the book tend to start or end with collecting all of the assumptions everybody on the team has about the customer, the product, how testing went, or something else. This doesn't sound lean and completely runs against pretty much every methodology out there that would want to prioritize verifiable data over assumptions and guesswork. And finally, they recommend nearly zero documentation because we were all at that meeting. Not a direct quote. Since everything's done by committee and we were all at that meeting, Lean UX tries to be lean by claiming you can have almost no documentation. But some documentation's important. What happens when people quit, are fired, or go on extended leave? Now there's nobody left to remember what happened at that meeting. What about people with poor memories? What if we all remember that meeting differently? Just seems unprofessional to rely on human memories of an event that we hopefully agree on rather than documenting it. So again, a little bit more about Lean UX, but you can go see my Lean UX podcast for me burning them down in slow motion. But unfortunately, Safe Agile completely adopted them. So pretty much every problem you have with Safe Agile and some other flavors of Agile come from the Lean UX book. What do we do instead? I know it's been good to find some slice of what we do and get people to listen to it. Design thinking and design sprints seemed like the newest form of UX and CX evangelism. We imagine they're getting everybody thinking about design, but if you ask for time or budget to do some research for a project, maybe you need weeks. Do you get that? Thanks to socializing design thinking? Or does someone say, oh, just do some exercises and workshops? Is your company investing in design thinking and adding it to job titles, but they still think user-centered design is bloated, expensive, and taking too long? Do they want to see UCD or HCD replaced with team workshops? Then this isn't good. What do? Get out of the building. Okay, maybe not easy in the pandemic, but gather the cross-functional team, stakeholders, leadership, and hire if you can. Have them observing customer interviews and field studies to better understand customer realities. This has to be better than people staying in the office and guessing at customer experiences. Go watch our customers meet the 4 horsemen of bad UX. I use my own flavor of an ideation workshop, which collects ideas, but requires that each idea is written as a user story. That way we keep people focused on customers and their real needs. There is no sketching in my ideation workshop, and it can be done on-site or remotely. Ultimately, the exact execution of the idea doesn't matter. We'll need to work that out. It's better to just collect great ideas from people, get their names, and thank them later. If your company still insists on doing design sprints or team design exercises, after they're done, get all of the sketch solutions and move the best ideas through our UCD process, whether or not they won the popular vote. I've seen some companies circumvent us and try to push the winning design straight to product management or engineering to be released by customers. Make sure designs are given to you so you can shepherd any idea with deep customer value. I've also noticed that a couple of people have released books claiming, here's how you can get your design sprint idea to market. Well, that sounds like it was a loser, because if it was so great, why didn't it get to market? I see people trying to circumvent us with this, so make sure you're stepping in. Also remember, we don't hang ideas at our desk and ask teammates to vote on them. We test with real and archetypal customers to determine the best executions of the best ideas. Don't let things in your domain happen by committee. Any team exercise or workshop or design sprint we do must have concrete success criteria. Not, we hope we get some ideas at the end. Concrete success criteria and KPIs. Calculate costs and ROI. Watch these workshop outputs. What did they cost in the short and long term? Piles of people in a room for days, plus work done on this stuff afterwards. These costs can add up. What did these workshops produce, if anything, and why did they fail? Having success criteria and better calculating costs and ROI will shine bright spotlights when the workshop declares outcomes like, everybody really enjoyed design thinking, or we had camaraderie and stakeholders felt included. There are many less expensive and more productive ways to have results like that. Let's start looking at the end-to-end financial reality. And finally, what to do instead? Shift terms to what you really mean. Talk about CX without evangelizing. Refer to your tasks and processes and phases. Every job at our company is complex. They don't water it down for you. Don't water CX and UX down. Shift away from terms that don't accurately capture or represent what we do. We can't control which teammates show up at our workplace and have no idea what we do. Managers, I'm leaving that to you. But we can control what we teach them about CX and collaboration. So how can we get a seat at the table? Stakeholders and the business sometimes have low or no empathy for customers, which is why saying customers are having problems doesn't instantly get time and money for us to fix everything. Our best bet is to tie our work and its outcomes to ROI and the achievement of business goals. But right now, we're just a staff job that looks like we don't make the company money. We're assumed to be a pair of hands that draws what the BA overprescribed in requirements. And if the project is a success, thank you, BA. Thank you, product manager. Thank you, engineering. Thank you, marketing. And meanwhile, nobody seems to know what we do. That means at many companies, our new best friend is probably marketing. I know you're thinking marketing, I fight with them the most, I hate them, but hear me out. They have the business's ear and wallets. They have mountains of goals that we can help them achieve. We'll partner with them on their KPIs and metrics. They'll help us get some of the time and budget we need. Marketing will help us tie business successes to our work. We can also partner with marketing on work that they often do now but shouldn't be doing alone. How many of you work at companies where the public-facing website is done by marketing and magically they never want to talk to UX people about it? Well, we could be working on these websites, working on copy, emails, and other marketing things so that what the public sees is more likely to meet or exceed goals. Even if marketing wants to A/B test, let's make B a better variant that's been vetted. We're going to make marketing look good, and they're going to make us look good. They'll help tie CX to goal achievement and ROI. And by the way, I gave this talk a bunch of times last year, and I know a couple of so-called UX gurus heard it, and it must have been very influential because one of them has now decided all of his talks this year are about metrics and this stuff. So, influential. Let's talk about business goals and customer needs. Sometimes that Venn diagram appears to be on two different continents, and then companies will complain, oh, UX people, they're not focused enough on business goals. They're not making stakeholders happy. They're too focused on customer needs and problems. What's wrong with that? The alternative is building what people don't like or need. And how's that working for us? Why would we do that, even if it made somebody's manager happy? Don't fall for that bullying and decide to shift what you do to try to make stakeholders happy. But we shouldn't burn stakeholders at the stake. That's not why they're called stakeholders. Here's the real issue. Why doesn't our diagram look like this? Why aren't business goals and customer needs more aligned? Or why do they start aligned and end up on different planets once someone has overwritten the requirements? If you really want to be agile, then as you're collecting and interpreting customer feedback, you might have to rethink product, features, and roadmap. That's what Agile says. Agile demands that once you learn you're building the wrong thing, you be agile and switch gears. But if the business learns that we're not delivering what customers need, why isn't the business shifting gears and changing their goals? We can't make customers change what they need from us, what problems they hope we'll solve, and what tasks they need to accomplish. The business needs to be better aligned with what we hear and know from customers. And again, that's where CX and UX research is hugely important. The more we're guessing, the more we're doing flawed research, or the more we're avoiding research, the less we know about our customers. We are risking a lot of time and money to guess when we can do proper research and know. We need partnerships like with marketing and some other fresh allies who can help us push these transformations. We'll need to work more closely with business analysts so they can get out of the habit of overwriting the requirements that try to turn us into order takers. Remember that we are here, partially, to mitigate risks proactively, predictively. This is really part of our job, and we need to be selling that to the business more. So what kind of risks can we proactively and predictively, hopefully, mitigate? Building the wrong products and services, yeah. Burning engineering's time, budget, and resources. I have a lot more slides on that, but we really need to be calculating how much engineering has wasted time, money, and sanity when we rush stuff out to people and just ship it and then have to fix it later, or it doesn't get fixed later. Causing customers to meet the 4 horsemen of bad UX: frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction. Burning money on customer support, social media managers, and others that calm and help customers. What about the risk of marketing being wasted and sales can't sell this? We're losing customers or having trouble attracting them. And of course, the risk of being reactive. So much of Agile is accidentally reactive. Build it, release it, then see what customers think. That's incredibly reactive, slow motion, and to me, not lean. We can be more proactive and predictive and more agile if we are getting to know customer reactions and needs through the UX process, not once it's gone out to the public. So just a few more slides here. Hey, I'm not the only person out there saying these things. If enough of us speak up and act on what's going wrong, we can hopefully push our boat in a new direction. So be very mindful of where you're silent and where you speak up. Speak up unemotionally and respectfully. I find that makes more people pay attention than when we accidentally get emotional, like, don't you care about customers? No more drama. And very quickly, I want to tell you my 9 core principles from my Delta CX world. And I'm hoping that if they sound like something that resonates with you, that we'll be able to connect maybe on LinkedIn or my Slack channel or YouTube and help stand up together and hopefully improve our profession, turn it around without traditional evangelism. So the Delta CX core principles are: our highest priority is customer satisfaction, quality over speed, don't get trendy, forget the buzzwords and the gurus. We are grounded in proper research. Success relies on low ego action heroes. Let's correctly assess our candidates. Collaboration with respect. Break down silos, but don't feel pressured by any methodology to give up your autonomy or to do work by committee. Collaboration and design by committee aren't the same thing. Got a podcast on that. See the playlist. Play to people's strengths. It's okay to specialize. It's okay to be T-shaped. You don't have to pretzel yourself into being a unicorn. Most unicorns aren't unicorns. Customer touch points. Every interaction a customer has with your company adds to the story they tell themselves and others about your brand. We must deliberately architect all of these. And finally, the cambiata, which is Italian for changed, and I use it to mean that we strategically take the best path to achieve all of the above, even if that path is a little non-linear. We must think critically, and we must be change agents. So go forth, be these things, fight for them, and hopefully you'll join my adventures. So that is it. I hope to see you guys somewhere in the universe. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, please reach out. Check out deltacx.com to learn more about what I'm on about in the book and the training and the YouTube channel and the Slack and my Medium articles. Basically, I am between jobs right now. So thing 1, available. Thing 2, I am just writing and podcasting like mad so that I have a library of free content available to you guys and gals and others for whenever you are interested in it and whenever a topic interests you. So with that, I will unshare my screen with my thanks again to Carmen, the UXPA. And now I'll take a look at the chat and see what questions there might be.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me press the stop sharing button.
Yep. Glad everybody was able to attend. Looks like we've got 2 questions in the chat.
Oh, great. I see them now.
Yep. So we can go ahead, and then it looks like someone may have also raised their hand. So again, if you have a question, just feel free to drop it. Yep, just drop it in the chat, and Debbie will go ahead and get to it. So Debbie, I'll let you go ahead and take care of those.
Okay, and I'm going to answer these until Carm kicks me out. So you guys ask all the questions that you have. If I don't get to a question, feel free to email me, message me on LinkedIn, or every Tuesday I go live on LinkedIn and YouTube with office hours Ask Me Anything. So you can find me. Anonymous person says, what's an effective way to make it clear that we're not asking engineering for their approval, but we'll listen to feedback? feedback? Is there a way to reverse that if it's been the assumption in the past? That is a little bit hard. It's a great question. So I find that at some companies, if they already think that engineering is in charge of you and engineering bosses you around and you are engineering's order taker, it's going to be hard for you to change that. It's probably going to take your manager dealing with their managers. That managers are going to have to come together and take a look at roles and boundaries and domains and say, hey, engineering, you solve your own problems. You do your architecture. We have some ideas. We collaborate with you, but we stay out of your stuff. Here's what's happening in CX and UX. Here's our roles. Here's our domain. Here's our boundaries. And we respectfully request that you stay out of our stuff, but here's how we're going to collaborate with you. In my book, and my book's a little bit out of my reach right now as I'm in a new desk setup, but I do have something that I call waves of collaboration. And my boyfriend's about to run over with my book. Thanks, honey. And my thinking hat. I forgot to get my thinking. No, honey, hurry up. Wrong direction. Anyway, I've got something that I call waves of collaboration. Let me see if I can find it quickly. It's towards the end. For those of you who have the book, just search for waves of collaboration. Oh, here it is. I can't tell you what page it's on because he has the old version before I renumbered the pages. Thank you. That's my critical thinking hat. I'll take that as well. We've been joking that I need a critical thinking hat when I tell everybody, put on your critical thinking hat. So I have something that I call waves of collaboration. And basically I say first wave is CX and UX collaborate amongst ourselves and do what we want to do. Next wave is we pull in product and we say, hey, product, is this matching user stories? Is this matching intentions? Am I missing anything? Now, what I say, I've got a podcast on collaboration versus design by committee versus decentralization. Look that one up on the YouTube channel. And I talk about the main way to tell people the difference between these things is in collaboration, I'm doing my job and you're doing your job. I did interaction design. Product manager, take a look from your perspective. Did I get all the user stories and things? Okay, that's product manager doing their job, not mine. Engineering, take a look at this from a technical perspective. Do you have all the APIs in place? Do you have services? Do you have microservices? Can you build this? Very different question than, what do you think? So watch how you ask the questions. So anyway, I'm going to get to everybody's questions. I'm going to give some medium and short versions of things, but that would be the beginning of my answer there. And hopefully that gives you some help there. So I've answered that. Alfredo asks, are design sprints a waste of time or money? Last night, my podcast was design sprints are devolving and evil. So you can go to my YouTube channel, go to the live podcasts playlist and look for that one. Do I think they're a waste of time and money? More yes than no. Do I think they've never created anything good? No. It's not that I don't want to deal in universals. It's not that they've never come up with anything good, but I have a long thing that I go into in my podcast about how to calculate their financial value and to see for yourself at your company whether or not they're a waste of money, because I can't say for your company whether or not they are. I can only say put on your critical thinking hat, which for me is my limited edition Disney steampunk Mickey ears. Put on your critical thinking hat, do the math, and see if they are a money pit at your company, because chances are they are. Just a couple of things from the chat room. Roselle says, what a great webinar. Thank you, Roselle. CX, UX are not the only ones who face being seen as order takers. So true. I know when I give this to other roles, they go, oh God, they're doing that to me too. I go, I know. Thanks, engineers. Engineers thought Agile made them in charge of everything. So we've got to fix that. I am working on fixing that. Jonella, or Yonella, I don't know, sorry, I'm bad with names, says, what does T-shaped mean? Great question. T-shaped is one of the many terms we use to imply that someone has specialties as well as subspecialties. And the idea is if you think of a capital T, then the long bar of the T is your key specialty. So for me, my key specialty tends to be strategy, information architecture, and interaction design. My short bar of the T, which are things I think I'm excellent at, but not a top expert are all the research and testing stuff. So I think I'm great at that, but I know I'm not as good as someone who got a master's degree in it or works in it in a specialized way. So I consider myself T-shaped in that I can bring multiple abilities to a job, but sometimes I defer to a specialist who's better at it than I am. So that's a little bit about T-shaped. Some people say M-shaped and hedgehog, and there's all these crazy words, but T-shaped is a generally accepted letter. So look that up. Christy says, shallow capabilities in many areas, deep talent and experience in one. Yeah, so I don't think of my research as shallow. I just think of it as a subspecialty in that it's not my core specialties, and I defer to the people who have a greater specialty in it than I do. Agnes, I see your question. I'm going to try to juggle this with the, oh, Agnes posted in both places. I promise I'm looking in both places, guys. Agnes posted twice, which means it's super important. Wonderful webinar. Thank you, Agnes. Oh, Carm, yeah, Carm wasn't muted. She's got the old ringtone, everybody. Agnes says, what do you mean by more realistic interactive prototypes? Super question. If that wasn't as clear as I'd hoped from my slides, so sometimes people think that a realistic prototype, it means more visual design or using our design system, showing the finalized visuals of something. But I see realistic prototypes as being realistic to the interactivity of them. So for example, I work completely in Acture. Let's say I'm prototyping in Acture an e-commerce website with a checkout. What that means is I'm going to make it so that you can fake search the site. That way I can take searching to user testing. I'm going to make it so that you can click add to cart and something goes in your cart. I'm going to make that cart page work realistically so that if you take it out of your cart, it goes out of your cart. If you check out, it calculates your tax because I can do math in Acture. So to me, a more realistic prototype should feel, maybe even if we don't put visual design on it, even if it's medium fidelity and a little bit black, white, gray, limited color, limited visuals, that it's going to feel more like the real thing, that it's not just a happy path, that maybe you end up with an error message. Or as I like to do in Acture, I create different paths. New customer sees this, returning customer sees this. And I can do that in Acture because of the complexity that Acture allows. Michael's saying in the chat room, in our prototypes, we validate fields and carry data from page to page using Acture. Absolutely. So if I have you doing a checkout or I have you logging in, I can then put on other pages, hi Agnes, because I have that piece of information being held behind the scenes in what Acture calls a variable. Now again, I love Acture. I am one of their recommended trainers. I have 17 hours of training available online at what I call my P-Type Academy, P-Type short for prototype. So ptype.academy is where you can find my Acture courses. Sorry, this is like the 10th talk I've given this week. I'm living on chloroseptic. By the way, British version of chloroseptic is not poison. Funny thing, Google it. As someone once said, Google it, it's a fact. So I believe it's more important to create real interactive prototypes with realism that replicates the product or service that we are creating, whether or not it's pretty. I don't usually deal in visual design because I'm a musician, but I deal in the realism, and I want people to fill out fields, and I want them to get it wrong, and I want them to see an error message. Jason says, oh, hi, Jason. Excellent thoughts on how and why to stop evangelizing with teams. But what are your thoughts on working with executive C-suite leadership that identifies CX and UX as a critical strategic driver, but doesn't invest in hiring enough pros? Aside from walking away and finding a new job with better leadership, how can leadership be shown the value and need? Fantastic question. And I do deal with this in my podcasts, and I've had a request to deal with it even more, and I do deal with it a lot in my book as well. Ultimately, for those people, it's going to be a lot of numbers because typically they either don't have empathy or they're not swayed by empathy. They're not typically swayed by, we helped this customer. You're typically going to have to start collecting numbers. And I've got mountains of slides. You guys saw, I don't know how many slides you just saw. You guys saw, what, 50 slides or something? I have 400 slides, so there's a lot you didn't see. And my book was 191,000 words, which is the length of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So I have a few ideas. But I think a lot of it is going to come up to doing calculations, and see if you can get even one team at your company to be a little bit of a test team. You know what? Give this company the best UX people, or a couple of great seniors, couple of cool juniors, or leader, whatever. Here's a cool UX team. These are our strong people. Pick your super strong people. And we want the time and money to do our proper things, and give us metrics, which I talked about before. Let's take a look at our metrics. You know, we could we improve conversion by 1%? Could we improve conversion by 2%? I mean, the math on that could be astronomical for some companies. A 1% increase in conversion for some companies could be millions of dollars. So start to find even small ways that you can prove yourself. Anywhere where you can show you are saving the company time, money, sanity, or making the company time, money, sanity works. I also like to show them how much I'm able to help engineering be more efficient. Your engineering team is going to be more efficient, more agile, and more lean because of how you work with UX. By allowing UX to go through their whole process ahead of time, yeah, I know you think it's not agile, you think it's not lean, you think it's wasting time and money, but let me tell you this. You're going to save mountains of money on the engineering itself because they're not going to be stabbing at ideas or having endless change requests. You're going to save mountains of stuff when it gets released to the public, where the public won't hate you so much, and you won't have to burn what you spend on customer support. And then you're going to save money. I have screens of how to calculate this with real numbers. It's dizzying, but you can do actual calculations and estimates of what this costs. Then we're going to save you money, because how much do you like when engineering has to stop what they're doing and fix an old problem? You hate that, right? Everybody hates that. What if that could happen less? Because we tested things earlier on and we didn't let crap go to market. And so I'm trying to get people to be refocused on prioritizing quality. It sounds so stupid. It sounds so simple, but that's why I called my book How Valuing Customer Experience Can Transform Your Business. It seems so stupid, but if you can actually prioritize this stuff, yes, it looks like we're spending more time and money up front investing in us and our processes, but you will save it on the other. You'll save it in engineering. You'll save it later on. You'll save it with marketing, so they don't have to try to market a dead dog. Sorry, dogs. You'll save it with sales, who is tearing their hair out, bleeding customers. So there are lots of ways, but it all comes down to numbers. So that would be my medium-sized version. Anonymous. How do you deal with all the people in your team who want to learn UX, big air quote, once they worked with you because it looks so fun and not that hard, and ask you to recommend them some books and workshops? I mean, is there an easy, polite way to tell them it's a real job you don't learn in 3 books without sounding like a condescending person? Yeah. First of all, you bring me in to do the Dev and UX program. That sets them straight pretty fast. But I have a slide in my Dev and UX program that I even do in like the half-hour version, so all the engineers see it and they love it. So I do a slide, and off the top of my head, the script of the slide goes something like, let's say you engineers are having a bottleneck with your most important back-end developer. There's just too many stories looking for that person's specialty. What are we going to do? Well, we could create a skills matrix but that's not going to help us now. That'll help us balance things better. We could do more exploratory testing and get feedback sooner to developers. Okay. We might have to add another developer to deal with this. But you know what nobody tends to suggest at this point? Nobody says, hey, everybody stop working and let's have that specialized back-end developer teach everyone their specialty. Yet, when I read Agile and Scrum books, they say your UX practitioner is probably going to be a bottleneck. Have them train everybody on how to do their job. Well, good news. I studied some basic programming in 1979, so surely I have an eye for coding and a feel for programming. So you guys want to teach me to do some coding, right? Why don't you just give me some Ruby or some Java, and I'll code to production to help you with your bottleneck. And of course, at that point, all the engineers in the room look like they're going to throw up. And if I've learned any of their names, I'll start picking them out. I'll go, what? George, I don't have a job? You're not going to hire me? And of course he goes. I go, well, you don't want me to do, you work at Volvo. Do you want me to do your work? Ah, okay. Yeah, so I've got more slides than that one. I've got a few slides where I reinforce that they don't want us doing their work. On no planet would an engineer want a UX person to come in and do a little coding. And, you know, or you might say to someone, well, how long did it take you to get really good at coding? Or, you know, another thing I say in the slide is, should I just read an O'Reilly book? How about I just read an O'Reilly book and then I'll code to production? Oh, the whole room falls apart at that. So I try to relate it back to them. How long did it take you to be really good at coding? How many years did you spend on it? Well, that's about how many years I spent on it, or a UX professional spends on it. So I tell people it's great to teach people about UX. I say, let's let people be conversational in UX, just like we should be conversational in engineering, conversational in product, conversational in marketing, understanding what they're doing. But we don't want to teach them our jobs. And do I sound condescending? I hope not. I think I hopefully sound funny and silly, but I do find that the point sure gets across. But also for the longer Dev and UX program, I actually have them do a couple of exercises in UX that I've purposefully designed to make very difficult to do. And they go, oh, that was really hard. I don't want to do UX. So, you know, as I like to say, if you're going to manipulate people, you might as well win. Jonella says, thank you. Stephanie is here. Hi, Stephanie. She said, Stephanie's everywhere. She says, about money. I don't remember who it was, but a UX designer was pissed at e-commerce baskets, said he contacts those company and says, okay, let me fix this for you. If it works, I get X% of what it sells. If not, you don't pay me anything, and nobody took the deal. That was Dr. Nick Fine who said that, who said he wishes he could have companies give him a cut of what they make and nobody will go for it. It's sad how people don't see how much good design and user experience can help sell. Yes. Let me go over to the Q&A. Amin says, what is your advice for current engineering students who are interested in UX but don't have formal UX education, where to start and how to get into the field? I've got a podcast that covers that. If you go to the Delta CX channel on YouTube and search the podcasts, I've got a podcast called So You Want to Work in UX. And I just shot it last month, so it's really fresh, and it has my top advice for how to get into UX. Right now, I think most education is sadly garbage. I think the boot camps are pretty terrible, if not scams. So I don't have a lot of fantastic advice right now, but the core of my advice tends to be get a mentor or a paid coach who can really work with you and invest in you and watch you and make sure you are leveling up your craft. Because if you try to self-teach, or take an online course or do a boot camp, who is checking your work to see if it's any good? So that would be the micro short version of that. Also, Amin says there are many people who are talking about UX, which makes the job of UX self-learning difficult. Yeah, the problem is self-learning seems easy. Watch lots of courses, take a small test, get a certificate. But what do you really know? What can you really do? And sometimes you don't even know. And so I find that many people new to UX are guessing at it because no matter how they learned it, they did not get good kind of oversight or mentoring or coaching to make sure they were doing the right things the right ways as well as they could. Too many boot camps and places are saying, turn in your work. We see you turned in work. Congratulations, you get a certificate. Michael says, Jared Spool insists all UX people should know how to code so they can explain how to implement your design. My reply was, you better hire some new programmers. Michael, I am the biggest anti-fan of Spool. I am typically burning him to the ground wherever possible. And in fact, I have an entire podcast burning him to the ground, though not by name, but now you know. It's called the UX Tipping Point of Pal Mickey. So if you're heading to my YouTube, I suggest that one. There's a lot of problems with Spool, and I'm always disappointed that considering how much clout he has, he's not saying more things that really support and encourage UX autonomy and growth, and that I believe he is typically cutting us down by saying everybody's a designer or everybody should be a unicorn. I believe these are two poor and terrible messages, but funny enough, they are both things he wants to be paid to train companies on. So I think there's an interesting coincidence there between the messages he gives and what he gets paid to train people on. Just critical thinking hat for a moment there. This doesn't work with this headset. I'm gonna have to get a new headset. It does not work. So here's the funny thing about coding, and I also have a podcast on should UX people code. Here's the thing. I know how to write HTML and CSS. I do not show up to engineering and go, here's how to implement your designs, because I don't want to be punched in the face. There is no way I can know more than even a junior engineer at the company. Good God, people, empathy, humility, low ego. We need to have these. I do not want to tell any front-end dev or anyone else or DevOps engineer how to implement my design. Can I do this? That's just crappy. I'm trying to not swear, but I am such the anti-fan of Spool that is so bad. And it comes from some of these people out there who are acting like UX is the center of everything. Now, I believe customers are the center of everything, and that's then the spokes are marketing and sales and engineering and product and us and so many other people. You're my hero too, Michael, especially if you're using a proper Italian pronunciation of your last name. So to me, Spool is one of our problems. He's second on my list. First is Jeff, who wrote the Lean UX book, then Spool, then I've got a few more people. But I think I tell people, please, when you hear me, when you hear Spool, when you hear anybody, put your critical thinking hat on, even if it's not as pretty as mine, and really think about what would be the outcomes of that. If what Spool said came true, what would be the outcome of that? What would be the outcome of me learning some HTML and CSS and going up to the full-time front-end dev at my company and saying, here's how to implement my design? We can't do that. We don't like when it's done to us. We don't like when product comes to us and says, I sketched a wireframe. Whose worst nightmare is that? Hands up. Whose worst nightmare is product going, I sketched a wireframe? Or BAs going, I sketched a wireframe. We must not do that to others. We must not step into their specialties. We must just focus on our specialty and regaining its autonomy from the poor messages that are out there from Lean UX, from Agile, from Spool, and from some other people. My message is not that special. My message is just a return to our jobs having meaning. Here's a great example. How many people agree with me that UX UI means someone who is a visual designer who likes to make wireframes? And they probably don't know that much about UX, but the job is UX UI. But I remember in 2011, UX UI meant something else. UX UI meant you were a user experience professional who was approaching the user interface with all of the science and care that goes into user-centered design, which means that in 2011, this was my license plate. Now I'm embarrassed to use that. I won't use that term because I'm not an artist. You guys saw I'm not an artist. I'm not a UI person. I can't get that job. I shouldn't get that job. You make the design system. I'll push it around. We'll make some extra components out of it. We'll get it in there. I can push it around. This meant something. Now it doesn't. That's next week's podcast. But please just put on that critical thinking hat. So like when Spool says everyone must be a designer, that is not how we win a seat at the table. That's how we convince people that they don't need us. I feel very strongly about these things, and that's why half the time I say him by name and half the time I don't. But he was actually also the person I was referring to earlier, who heard my talk many times last year and magically this year is out there talking about UX metrics. So I like to imagine, I've seen him do a couple of coattail riding things on me. So let's just say perhaps I'm inspiring him, but he's not inspiring me other than my calls to battle. I know I've been here a long time, probably longer than anyone can stand, but if you guys have any more questions or comments, I'm happy to take them. You're welcome to disagree with me on things. You're welcome to say, hi, it's Jared Spool and I hate you too. And I would say, I know, we've been through this already. So disagreements welcome. Otherwise, I hope to see more of you guys in my podcasts. And like I said, I go live on LinkedIn and YouTube, usually twice a week, sometimes more. and we make it a conversation there as well. Thank you. People thanking me. Thank you. Doug says, love the fierce point of view. I think we have to, Doug. I think we've been sitting down and being quiet too long, certainly on many topics as we've been talking about this month, but we've got to stand up. The Lean UX book came out and we all said nothing. And now it's been adopted by Safe, Agile, Scrum, and others. We've got to start talking and saying stuff. Patty, good insight. Thank you. Taking a performance metrics class next week with him. Great. You can thank me for that. I don't know. Yeah, but it's funny. Performance metrics. I think Spool's on the wrong track with what he's teaching. But Patty, get in touch with me. I'm curious if you feel like you learned anything usable from it. Because to me, what I tell people is, if someone has actionable ideas, that's great. If they're just talking, blah, blah, blah. We need to have more people out there with actionable ideas. And if they don't have actionable ideas, we might need to knock them off the thought leader pedestal. Ufa says, thank you for your bluntness and humor. UX needs more of it. Thank you. I'm glad you took it as both. I always hope people see both of it in there. So thank you. You got it as I was intending it. Thank you. Thank you for another great talk. Thank you, Peter. Sounds like you've heard another one. I think I've done 6 different talks this week. So hopefully people saw other ones. Yes, Patty, please keep in touch. I'm curious if you learned anything actionable from it. So I've had people say, oh, I took a Spool course and I didn't think there was anything I could really do with that. So I'm curious if he finally has something actionable. Agnes says, it was a joy to listen to you. Agnes, it was a joy to answer your question. Keep in touch and make your prototypes more realistic. But I'm not fishing for compliments, people. Please stay in touch, get in touch. You know, find me on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube. We've got lots of podcasts coming up, and hopefully some of you could even be guests. If you guys have a perspective where you are knowledgeable, passionate, and have actionable information, I want you as a podcast guest. Joel says, great energy and info. Thank you, Joel. I am nearly asleep. I'm like so out of energy. And I don't do caffeine. This is just like, I know if my mom could see me now, she'd be like, Debbie, get more sleep. Jovan says, I'm going to steal that religion vegan UX line. You guys can. If you steal any of my models, please credit Delta CX, like 4 Horsemen. But if you just steal some of my jokes, I'm going to let you. Sorry, Carm, back to you.
Oh, this was really good. I agree with the comments. Really good, fresh perspective. We agree on a lot of the same things. Debbie, I would love to have a conversation with you. I'm going to dig into the podcast and the YouTube myself. So this was really awesome. So thank you. I know the community thanks you. They're still singing your praises, Debbie. We would love to have you back. And so, yeah, let's arrange that. And yes, go to her YouTube and subscribe. I'm going to do the same. So this was really awesome. Thank you so much, Debbie. And again, everybody, this is being recorded. So of course, you guys can follow up on uxpa.org, see our website, go to our YouTube channel, and you can revisit this same webinar. So with that, everybody have a happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. And Debbie, we will be in touch.
I hope so. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend and stay safe and healthy.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.